Okay, so we're entering sequences on the calculator, and we've got it so far so that we got into mode, we went down and got out of the function mode and into the sequence mode over here, and we hit enter, and then we got out of that by hitting y equals, and we're here on the screen where you enter your sequence. But this is not something that's like super easy to read. But if you really analyze what it's asking, it'll make sense. That very first thing, it says n min equals 1. You have to understand what the end part is. N min equals 1. Here, I'm going to get a blank screen here. If I had a sequence like this, 5, and then I'm going to add 3 makes 8, I'm going to add 3 makes 11, dot, dot, dot. Do you get what I'm doing there? All right. Well, what's the n? What? All right, so would you agree? Remember me saying that this is like any term, so I called that u sub n. Does that ring a bell? Remember that? That's like any term. What was the term right in front of that called then? U sub n minus 1. Very good. Okay, so what is the n? The n is the little subscript. It's the little subscript. Those are the n's. All right, so now I'm going to have you see if you remember how to write the equation for this. Everybody, if you have to, take your iPad and go to a blank screen or something, or go to some area in between the notes, you know, like off to the side. Write u1 equals, and then write the equation for this. It says un equals, don't try to use a calculator yet. If you can't do it by hand, then there's no way you're going to be able to do it by calculator. Because you got to be able to do it by hand first and then put that in the calculator. So try to write the equation for this. We did them yesterday, or not much yesterday, more the day before. I'm going to pause while you and your partner make sure you've got the right equation for this little sequence. Okay, so we've got the equation here. This is the first number. So when the calculator, I'm going to write it off to the side, the calculator is going to ask you what n min is. Think about what it's asking. These are the n's. What does min mean? Minimum. What is the minimum of the subscripts? That isn't n. That isn't n. This is n. What is the minimum n? 1. So, on your calculator where it says n min, you put a 1. Because this number right here is a 1, if we had started with u sub 0, then we'd be putting a 0 there right now. But we chose to start with a u sub 1. All right, so again, on your calculator, the top line, you have a 1 there. Enter. Are you with me so far? All right. I know this can feel a little bit painfully slow sometimes, but it's because there's 30 people and I'm trying to keep you all in the same place. It's kind of like we're taking a walk, and some people are bigger and stronger and could walk faster, and there's other people that just aren't quite there. They got a broken ankle, and we got to keep them caught up to us because their calculator's not working or whatever. All right, this next part, it says u parentheses n. Take a guess what that's trying to say. U parentheses n. U sub n. Yeah, it's trying to say u sub n is equal to, and this is where you're going to type u sub n minus 1. So use u as a above the 7, the lowercase u. Some kids use the capital U. It doesn't work. I have the red button on the screen right now. Is right above that 7 key is where you're going to find the little u. Sub, you can't do subscripts, so you do parenthesis. N minus 1. The n is counterintuitive. See which key is red right now? That's where you get the n from. U sub n minus 1. Minus, notice I used the minus key, not the negative key. 1. And the parentheses. There, u sub n minus 1. And then don't I have to have something after that? Because what we just typed was this. U sub n minus 1, and now we got to say plus 3. So we're going to say plus 3. Now, have we told it what we start with yet? No. We told the lowest n, that's the little subscript, we said the lowest n we're ever going to use is 1, but we never told it the 5. Do you see how there's no 5 up there? So now is the time when it's asking us u n min. if n min is really 1, it's really asking us what's u sub 1. Do you see what it's saying? It's saying u n min, and n min is 1, so it's really saying u sub 1. So what should we answer? U sub 1 is 5. So we're going to put a 5 there. I had one kid try to put a 5 with the end parenthesis, and it screws it up. It does, like, it can't read it. Now, believe it or not, even with me going that slow, there's going to be at least 3 people that when I do the next thing, it's not going to work. And you're going to need to turn to your partner and go, okay, let me see what you typed in. You go back to the y equals screen, and at least 3 of you did something wrong. I get it. We're all human. And also, sometimes it's not your fault at all because maybe one of your plots is on. See at the top where it says plot 1, plot 2, and plot 3? If any of those are dark, that means that you've selected and are going to try to be plotting that plot. So plot 1, plot 2, and plot 3 at the top should not be darkened in. There's other little errors that can happen. But when your calculator craps out, just instantly compare with the kid next to you. If they can't figure out what's going on, raise your hand, okay? So here's how you can tell if it worked. Everybody go to second quit and a nice clear blank screen. We quit. And now it feels wrong, like we just lost everything. It's not, it's more like a Google Doc. It's still there. It's instantly saved. It automatically saves for you, okay? So now, how do you think I can find out the 5th term? What do you think? What's your guess? Nope. I know. You could do it that way. But there's another way that I'm going to show you. Yes? Oh, except one with the 5th term, so say it one more time. Yes, u parenthesis 5. That's u sub 5. You're starting to speak computer. That's good. U sub 5. Enter. And the 5th term is 17. That makes sense. Just extend it in your head. It went 5, 8, 11, and it was adding 3, right? So it would have been, next one would have been 14, next one would be 17. It worked. All right. But what if they ask us for the first 7 terms? You're going to have to write down all 7? No, there's a place for that. Now that we're going to go where you said. Where do you think we can find a list of, like, the first 7 of the terms? Everybody hit second. And above this graph key, it says table. So I'll leave it red there for a second so you see what button I hit. Now, at this point, some of you, your graphs will be, or your tables will be reading some weird numbers. And it's not your fault. If yours started at like 20, at like row 20, then you'd be seeing like row 20, row 21, row 22, etc. And I'm going to show you how to get the table settings fixed. How many of you guys have it exactly like I do where it says error 5, 8, 11? Raise your hand if yours says that. Okay, whose doesn't say that? Okay, then you guys that are raising your hand, there's something wrong with your table settings. And it's going to happen to everybody eventually. So let's all go to table settings. It's not like the fine china. This is the settings for our mathematical table. And it's right here above window. Everybody go there, just for sympathy points for the people whose numbers are messed up. And we want to start at table start at 1, change table by 1s. So it should say 1 and 1. That means it'll start at row 1 and will count by 1s. Now go back to your table, and I bet almost everybody will be reading the same thing, that 1 is 5. That means the first term is 5. The second term is 6. No, that's wrong. 8, sorry. The third term's 11. The fourth term's 14. Did you see how it gives me a list? In fact, I can see the first 11 terms. Sweet. Now, is there anybody whose calculator is still not working? Okay, so there was like 8 of you that had table settings that were off. Now, that's going to happen. It's normal. Okay, so why would you ever want to mess with those tables? What if we wanted the 50th term? Would you want to hit down arrow 50 times? No, you'd want to change your table settings to start at 50. Let's do that. Everybody change your table settings to figure out the 50th row of this table. We're going to go to table settings, Start at 50. Now, go back to table. Second graph, it's above graph is table. And it may take a while. You know why? Because in a recursive sequence, you have to figure out each term by looking at the term behind you. So it has to do all 50 calculations before it finally is done. Yes? Go ahead, take care of it. I know the nurse will be happy to help you if necessary. Okay, so did you get 152? Raise your hand if you had 152. Okay, good. Now, I'm going to start from scratch, but don't wipe out this part of the y equals here, because do you get, you're always going to say u sub n minus 1? Like always? So you don't want to erase that, or you'll have to remember how to put it in. So we'll just change like one little thing. Let's make this geometric instead of arithmetic. So let's make it times by 3 each time. Our numbers will go up a lot faster. We'll still start with 5, just to keep our life easier. So would you please change it to a geometric sequence where the common ratio is 3. All you got to do is go over here and change that to times. That's it. That easy. Now, let's see if you learned how to do this. Tell me what the 12th term would be. And since I'm timesing by 3, it's going to be a big number. Really big. 12th term. Check with the kid next to you. See if you got the same 12th term as them. Now, there's two ways to do it. I'll show you how I like it in a minute. But you figure out your way of finding the 12th term. Okay. Here's my favorite way. Remember how I did u sub 5 on that blank screen? I don't even like the table because it takes too long. Now, if they make me list like 30 things, then I'm going to go look at the table. But if I just want the 12th term, I'm going u sub 12, enter. How many you picked that way? I'm curious. Okay. If you don't have to do it that way. It's just, I think it's a pretty smart way. Because then you don't have to like, oh, my table settings are off or whatever. Okay, so you just get the number you want. Now, this won't work as well if I say, at what point did it go above 1,000? Well, I'd have to go check a whole bunch of them. So it'd be better to use the table then. Okay, so everybody go to the table and tell me, at what point did it go above 1,000? And now you might be like, but my table settings are so big I can't even see it. Well then, change your table settings. You got to get pretty good at this. At what point did it go above 1,000? On the 6th term, it went above 1,000. Right? Okay. All right, now from scratch. Imagine completely new sequence. I'm not going to give you any hints. Just hit second quit, like you got a nice blank screen here. Even hit clear, so your calculator's like factory new. It's all ready to go, but you're on the test, and here's your problem. See if you can use the calculator to solve it. It starts with 10, and then it goes to negative 5, and then it goes to positive 2.5. What the heck is going on? You'd have to use a calculator and find the 5th term. All right, so first off, can you tell, am I adding something every time? Am I subtracting the same thing every time? Nope. Am I multiplying by something? How many of you caught that I was multiplying by a negative? All right, good. And I'm multiplying by a negative what? Well, discuss with your partner about how you could figure that out. And then write the equation for it. I'd use the u sub 1 equals blah, 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 u sub n. Write the equation and put it in the calculator and find the 5th term. Use the calculator's sequence function. Find the 5th term. Okay, so here's what you do. You take the second number divided by the first number. What's negative 5 divided by 10? It's negative 1/2. And some of you are like, well, I could just tell it was negative 1/2. Great. But what if the problem had been this? 8 comma negative 3.27. Can you just tell that they multiplied by some? No, you're going to have to use the calculator to do this, right? Would you please figure out what the common ratio is on this one? I know, I just changed the problem totally, but the point is that you can't just kind of like, oh, I can see you're multiplying by 1/2, because we aren't going to give you super nice numbers like that. So what is the ratio on this one? Yes?
It's -0.4.
Is it what it rounds to? Or is it exactly 0.4? 0.41. Okay, let's use that. How many of you got an answer that would have rounded to that? Okay, good. So all you got to do is take the second one, divide it by the first one. It's a ratio. That's why we call it the common ratio. All right, so back to that one that we were doing before. You should have said u sub 1 is 10. U sub n minus 1 times negative 0.5, or negative 1/2. And there's a times in there. That's important, because we're timesing by that. And if you're putting it in a calculator, you'd have to put a parenthesis around this, because it doesn't know how to do subscripts. So you'd say that. And then when I asked you for the, what did they say, the fourth term? Fifth term? What was the fifth term? Chloe? 0.625. Raise your hand if you got 0.625. All right, awesome. I think you're getting it. All right, so there's a worksheet on this, and I want to get you started on it. Try to remember this. You're skipping problems 4, 6, and 8. You're just going to skip those specific problems. I picked them on purpose because those are ones that wouldn't help you for the test very much. The other ones, I really don't want to skip any of the other ones because there's problems that could be like that on the test. All right, so skip problems 4, 6, and 8. I'm going to pull up that worksheet right now, pausing for a second. Okay, so this is the part where, for the first time this semester, we're talking about how we turn in homework. Last semester, I was still getting used to how Schoology would work as my main gradebook. I never did that. I've taught for 29 years. I have never used Schoology as my master gradebook, and nobody had actually in the whole district. But I was kind of used to how Skyward would do it. So anyway, I've learned a few things, and here's how I decided I want to do these. So when I have you skip a few problems, like I told you could skip 4 and 6. And 8. We'll just make the universal way of telling me that these were ones you allowed us to skip, Mr. Server. You just cross them off like this. Okay. And then let's say that you finish your homework on time, which is midnight tonight. Okay, by midnight, you need to have your homework done. Now, I apologize to those of you that want to do your work in the morning. You're going to work on some other subject in the morning, because the standard that works the best on the computer here is to make the homework due at midnight. Okay, so, because it'll default to that, and it takes tons of time to change every hour to different times and stuff. So, if due at midnight, there'll be a Dropbox every night. You'll drop it in there, but you don't know whether I'm actually going to grade it or not. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Okay, but I'll never be grading the ones I told you could skip. So you cross those off. And then, remember that there is a key. Now, usually the key is just going to be freely available. You're not going to have to do a first submission and then see the key. Usually you'll be able to just get to see the key. But if there's a key there but you can't open it, it's one of those days where, oh, I guess I have to complete the assignment before I can open the key. You know what I'm saying? But it's usually just going to be freely available to open and look and see if you're doing it right. Okay? So doesn't that mean you could just like copy the answers off the key? If you showed the work and everything, I'd probably never know. But my theory is it's better for you to have done it, even if you had to copy somebody else's handwriting, than to have not done it. And it'll show up on the test, because the tests are still worth 90% of your grade. So if you cheat your way to that 10%, yeah, I might not catch you, but it's very likely it'll show up on the test, because you just copying the keys isn't really going to help you very much. All right, so show some work. Drop it every night in the Dropbox. If you're ever absent, I'm going to try to catch that and put in an absent like score, and you'd be like, why the heck does my iPad show an 8.1 for my score. Okay, if it shows something weird like that, that means I put the score in there. And if you were absent, you can keep that score if you want, if it's good enough and you don't want to deal with turning in the homework from when you were gone. You can leave that placeholder score in there, and it'll be a decimal. That's how you'll be able to tell. Because otherwise, how on earth would you have gotten an 8.1? All right? But if you see like an 8.1 in the grade book there, and you want to do your homework because I was absent, I deserve full credit for this, then you can do the homework and still drop it in the Dropbox, and I'll overrule my 8.1 score. See how that's going to work? All right, I'm going to pause for a second. So let's get started on this thing together. The first one is really simple. It looks like it's dropping. No, it's gaining. It's getting bigger, but it's going back and forth between negative and positive. That makes me feel like it might be a geometric where you multiply by a negative. So multiply by negative what? You're multiplying by -3. You are correct. Now, could you bust out your calculator to do this? You could, but in my opinion, it's probably faster to just do this like without the sequence mode and everything. Do you get I just take this and multiply by what? What are you multiplying by? Well, take that divided by that. -3 divided by 1 makes -3. I'm multiplying it by -3 every time. Just keep multiplying by -3 a few more times, and you'll find the next 3 terms in the sequence. Okay, so this one was a geometric. And what are the next 3 terms? Somebody help me. What's -27 times -3? Positive. Thank you. And then multiply by -3 again, and you get... Thank you. And then the third one? Nice. Okay. There. That's how you do that. Did you really need to go through the calculator and do that and do the complicated way? No. But the ones down here, it will be like that. What if you're like, I don't know what you multiplied by? This divided by this. That's how you tell what they multiplied by. Okay. So let's go down here into the ones where you probably need to put it in the calculator to do it. Use the calculator too. All right. So write a recursive rule. Ooh, I know how to do that. U sub 1 is equal to -23. Somebody help me. What's the second line always? Come on, help me out. U sub n is equal to U sub n minus 1. And then what's happening? Am I multiplying by a negative again? No, it stays negative every time. So I couldn't be multiplying by a negative. Am I like subtracting something every time? I think it is subtract. Isn't it subtract 5 every time? What? Oh, weird. My bad. It's like negatives that are going up. So I got confused on the subtracting adding thing. You are correct. Plus 5. Now, sometimes don't let it freak you out if they add 5 in front of this. Do you get if you're adding 2 things, it doesn't matter what's first? So they sometimes put the plus 5 in front. Don't let that freak you out. Okay? And then there's my equation. And by the way, though, try to remember the domain. N is greater than or equal to 2. You won't even have to put that in the calculator. But this number is always 1 bigger than that number, you know? That's the domain, and saying this equation really only works to find the second term on. It can't find the first term with this formula because it always depends on the number in front of it. That's what the domain means. All right, so if you were doing this one, I hope you'd start with U sub 1 equals 1. Dice of destiny. Who should I call on to get the rest of number 9? Row 6, third person, SK, that's you. U sub n. Nice. You are correct. All right. And then what haven't I been doing so far? I haven't wanted to take the time to put it in the calculator and then find the 25th term. Once you put it in your calculator, it's not that hard. You just go U25. Oops, I wrote that wrong. After you have put it in the calculator correctly, so I'll do the second one. U sub 1 equals 1, u sub n minus 1 times -2. Right here, I'm just going to put a parenthesis where this is, and it just sets me up for the future that for the future, I'll just put in whatever the number is that's changing right there. Okay, now that's if it works, if it's times anyway. And then my starting term was a 1. And then I can go out of this and go u sub 25. One 6,777 216. Put in my commas, I might be able to read it. 16 million, etc. Okay, now that was pretty calculator intensive, tech heavy stuff. If you had trouble with the calculator, 12-minute warning there, so hours coming up at the end here soon. At least we're in the homework. If you had trouble with that, come in the morning, get some help, or stay after school. Just a quick reminder on my schedule. If you forget what morning I'm available, I totally understand. You have how many teachers? Probably 6 teachers that all have different schedules. And how are you supposed to know? Well, just look it up. It's on my welcome page. But tomorrow's a Friday. I would not be here in the morning. Your science teachers would be available, but math teachers aren't. So tomorrow morning you can't see me, but you could see me tonight after school. You could also see me on Monday before school. Not many kids come in on Mondays because it's kind of depressing to have to get up early on a Monday morning. But if you're one of those kids that's still struggling with the top 20, I encourage you to come in. Let me help you and at least get you up in the high teens. Okay. From there, it's usually just some putsy mistakes. But if you're not in the high teens on the top 20, you may need some help. Let me help you. You can either do it at home on the top 20, the Algebra Ninja website, or come in and get help from me. All right. That's all I have for you for today.